I guess we'll go anytime. The mission statement for the Lake Mills Area School District is preparing all of today's students for tomorrow's opportunities. Has the meeting been properly posted?
It has, yes.
Okay. With that, I will call this meeting to order, and I will ask, I will invite all that are able to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I will request a roll call for attendance.
Brianna Beslick.
Here.
Ken Imers.
Here.
Andrea Graham.
Here.
Kirk Lund.
Here.
Amy Litcher.
Here. We'll move on to the agenda task, and are there any revisions to the agenda that people would like?
I'll move the board approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, I will ask for a roll call vote.
Ken Imers.
Aye.
Andrea Graham.
Aye.
Kirk Lund.
Aye.
Brianna Beslick.
Aye.
Amy Litcher.
Aye. All right, then next we will go to the executive session task, and I will ask for a,
I'll move that we adjourn to executive session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85, parentheses 1, parentheses C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, specifically the district administrator's evaluation, as well as the January 3rd, 2024 executive session minutes.
Second.
okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, I will ask for a roll call vote.
Andrea Graham.
Aye.
Kirk Lund.
Aye.
Brianna Beslick.
Aye.
Ken Imers.
Aye.
Amy Litcher.
Aye. All right, so we are now in closed session.
Thank you, or Mrs. Schmidt, and all of our students. It just was amazing. We got to hear a little more music than what the board did at the beginning, but I think Mrs. Schmidt is one of those amazing teachers that consistently goes above and beyond for her students. If you maybe caught wind on one of our inclement days last week, she was giving virtual orchestra lessons to the students. And so we just appreciate, I know you play at so many community events with the kids, and orchestra just sounds awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Angie.
It was definitely a treat. Absolutely. All right. We will move back into open session, and we will be on item number 3A, board reports, and we'll jump to Michaela right now.
Hi. So for sports, we have for girls basketball tomorrow, which is the 16th. They're playing at Lodi. The boys basketball team is also playing tomorrow, but at Deerfield. And then wrestling has a meet on the 20th, which is this Saturday at Monroe. And then before winter break, because I recall we had a meeting just before winter break, we had Christmas dress-up days, which were really fun. We had pajama pants and flannel days, just different fun days we did. And then there were little hidden elves around the school that if we found them, we would get prizes. A lot of students enjoyed that as well, especially during their study halls and things like that. And then we had an assembly before break where we could buy raffle tickets and we would get entered in to win various prizes. You could pick if you wanted to be entered into like the gas gift cards or hygiene or it was an iPad this year, the big prize. And then lastly, last week was finals week, which was Wednesday through Fridays when we had finals. Due to the snow day, the Friday final day got moved to this Wednesday, so the first half of the day will be the two finals that we missed for Friday. And then lastly, Cocoa and Cram sessions were also available after school during finals week, so it was a nice quiet environment after school. You could just study and have cocoa and be in the library and it was just a nice peaceful environment just to study, to get away from the craziness at home. So, yeah.
I actually have one for you and a thought. For the finals days, do you like that they're more spread out over 3 days, or would you like it for future calendars down the road, 2, 3, 4 years down the road? Would you want it more crammed into like a 2-day thing and then a 3rd day to recover, or what are your thoughts?
Honestly, I prefer the 3 days because I think it's kind of stressful in general just to have to get them all in 1 or 2 days because your brain kind of needs to rest. I have heard some students talking about how they wish it was in 2 days, but I personally would be able to focus better on the test if it was spread out through 3 days.
Thank you for your thoughts.
Sorry, can you tell me, how many approximately then each day do you have?
So on Wednesday, we had 3 finals.
Okay.
So we would have a final, a 15-minute break, a final, lunch, and then another final.
Okay.
And then Thursday was the exact same thing. And then Friday, we had a final, 15-minute break, a final, and then we were off.
Okay.
So we would get off at like 11:30, I think, on Friday we were supposed to. So.
Thank you. All right, moving on to Kirk for the WASB or WASBA, whatever, ROSBER.
Okay, not really sure what I'm supposed to do with this. We'll be hearing, I think, input from all of you about the different resolutions and guidance on how to vote. I really didn't have a major problem with any of the resolutions, could see myself voting for all of them, but I'm looking forward to hearing all of your thoughts.
I think the biggest thing is, as board members, when you discuss that, is, I don't know, are there any resolutions you can't get behind that when Kirk goes to vote, you'd be like, nope, we really don't collectively agree on this? Or if you read through them and you feel like, yeah, that all makes sense, I mean, you could really just give him the authority then to, based on that as well. There's fewer resolutions this year than there has been in the past, much
I understand
less.
last year was kind of a debacle.
Yeah, so I would just say, like, glad to see that there were fewer of them. The other thing that you might find is that what's presented might actually change when you get there.
Okay.
So all the districts that come together, somebody might come up and say, like, I'd like to make an amendment, and this is what I'd like to change it to. Usually it doesn't drastically change, but sometimes it does. And so, yeah, so like reading through them now, I feel like, and granted, these aren't like written in stone, right? This is just what WASB follows and takes directive on when they go and kind of speak on our behalf. So it's guidance for them too, as they're throughout the year doing their thing.
They don't function as statutes with that
Exactly.
specificity, they're ideas.
Yes, exactly. So reading through them, I felt like they were all very, great things to look at and continue supporting. So yes, I would definitely say that I trust your judgment. If something might come up differently while you're there, then make your best
Okay.
judgment on that one.
I know other years there's been a motion to give Kirk give the delegate the authority to vote on behalf of the Lake
I
Mills
think
Area
that is
School
on the
Districts
agenda
later.
later,
Oh,
that
well, there you
specific
go.
vote.
There wasn't anything in there that I would say not to vote for. In particular, I did love the ones that supported like stipends, waiving fees and things like that for teacher certification. I liked seeing that. And then I saw there was a couple related to funding, increasing per pupil funding based on CPI each year in the legislature, changing the revenue formulas and things like that. So those were the two that I was like,
Okay.
Yeah,
Really
I
happy to
also
see.
keyed in on some of the pieces. The other interesting one, I think it was, you could choose between 5-year, 3-year, or current year for your open enrollment number. Did I?
Let's look at that one again.
And that they were lifting the revenue limits, or they were suggesting to. I mean, that seemed like a good thing for us in terms of having that kind of flexibility.
Oh, I see, the 5-year rolling average versus the 3-year rolling average, whichever is greater.
Which one is that in?
Flexibility.
Which resolution is that language in?
That one was 2.41 under modification of revenue limits. It was item C.
Do you have numbers?
Well, actually, also in particular, I wanted to, there are 2 proposed resolutions that were turned down by the committee, but those potentially could still come before the delegate assembly if a motion is made and a 2/3 vote allows it to be debated and voted on, and then it would be a simple majority could pass it. The 2 that were turned down have to do, one was universal free school meals and the Save Women's Sports Bill. If anybody had any thoughts on those 2.
I was going to say, the universal school one I think was on the list last year, and we didn't get to it.
That's why the committee didn't, but I can see somebody trying on the floor to get it considered.
What do they really mean when they say universal? Do you know, or is that just?
Not based on income.
I
So
see.
part of what they're seeking to do is to end like shaming of people who, have to have assistance and, burdensome forms to fill out to prove you're poor enough that they just say, okay, we're going to provide lunch for everyone, even if that means that, you're paying for lunch for students whose families can't afford it. It was something that happened during the COVID era and has ended. And this resolution seeks to reinstate the universal free school meals. Again, it's not slated to be on, but could make it back on if 2/3 of the assembly votes to consider it.
And do you know, would they do that after they've finished all of the other current ones on the docket?
I think so, but I'm not sure.
Because I feel like if that's the case, then you don't have to worry about it. They won't get there. But I also think, like I said, it's always really interesting to listen to just like our discussions, right? As we sat in closed session and like somebody mentioned something, oh yeah, that's right. So I think it's great to listen to the other districts because, rural versus urban, like there's always various viewpoints that you don't necessarily think about being Lake Mills. Really, we are a school board for Lake Mills, but we're for all public schools, right? So I think it's really just great to listen to everybody's perspective and then take that into account as you vote.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Then we will move on to Dr. Olson's reports, and one of them being already done, the strings, but it's wonderful.
I feel like the other one's kind of set in stone too. So we have Brianna and Ken running unopposed for the school board election in April. And so I guess, with that, I think just the consistency of the school board has been definitely a positive element here. Moving forward, I think just like you said, Brianna, the richness of the discussion and really looking at what's best for students and staff. It's been nice to be able to move forward with those objectives. I'll kind of interject real quick. I do have the rough draft of the community newsletter that'll hit mailboxes tomorrow. A shout out to Leader Printing and Tom, who just is really easy to work with. He's very detail oriented and quick. And Megan's put a lot of work into the graphics of that newsletter. It really, really is eye catching, I think. I didn't because we only had the one. We only got the one rough draft, but I can pass it around at the end.
All right, then, do you have anything else? Tanya, do you have anything else?
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's all right. It's all right. Then, has anyone signed up for community comments? All right, we'll move on to the approval of the consent agenda. This month's consent agenda includes the approval of the following: the December 18th regular meeting minutes, January 3rd special meeting minutes, January 8th facilities and finance and personnel committee proceedings, December's treasurer's report and vouchers and invoices, and the personnel report.
I move the board approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Are there any discussions or things that you would like to discuss or pull out? Okay, hearing none, I'll ask for a roll call vote on the motion.
Brianna Beslick,
Aye.
Ken Imers,
Aye.
Andrea Graham,
Aye.
Kirk Lund,
Aye.
Amy Litcher.
Aye. All right, moving on to the action items. This is for open enrollment seats, if you'd like to.
Sure. This is something that all school boards have to do each January, have to set the limits for the open enrollment seats. So this is really just rolling up our current year's enrollment and then looking at our capacity within our class size guidelines of how many new open enrollment students we'd be able to take without adding additional staff. I know that's a question I get asked a lot is, are we taking in too many kids? Does it affect staffing? And no, we look at those 5 sections across the board with those class sizes, and that's what we go with. So with the kindergarten, I built in a little flexibility with that. Those are bigger classrooms. We do have the ability to take up to 20, and sometimes that can be a little bit of a question mark as we get kids into kindergarten, because sometimes we still have kids in town that will enroll, and so far it has not been an issue. And just as a reminder, when we set these limits, we have the ability after that open enrollment window closes then to take the alternative applications after we've filled all of these seats. as needed. That usually comes into play when we're dealing with 4K, just because 4K enrollment usually comes in a little bit later, so then we can make decisions after the fact. But otherwise, I feel pretty comfortable with the numbers we have here.
Are there any questions, I guess, before motion? So are there any questions or comments?
I was wondering with the special education, there were just more students than capacity listed, and what kind of resources are we able to use for that?
It's something Jamie and I have been talking about. We've been looking at the special ed numbers at the elementary and looking at, it was part of our staffing discussion today for our admin team. And it's like, where do we put our resources? Do we continue to add to special ed teachers, to the numbers in staff there? Or do we start looking at, is there more of a need for reading or math intervention? Do we offset that at an earlier age, try to prevent students from going into special ed to begin with? And so I think it's an ongoing discussion. I know Jamie has brought up the fact that we probably will need to shift some staff to the elementary level to help out with those caseloads as well. And I'd stated in an email earlier too, that when we look at the number of IEP minutes that are in there, sometimes I think those numbers can look higher than, the numbers are what they are, but it's not like you're seeing each one of these students all day long in special ed. So especially, I know we're trying to move to a co-teaching to co-serve model of getting the teachers and the paras out into the classrooms more so instead of doing the direct pullout. It's a little easier to manage those caseloads when they're co-teaching with the teachers in the classroom versus all of a sudden you've got 15 to 20 special ed kids in a room, and all of a sudden you need more special ed paras to manage that. So it's something we're definitely looking at and working through. I think it's trying to get down to the root cause of why are students being staffed into special education, and is there something we can do better? I think it's one of the reasons that we started looking really closely at our curriculum, especially our math curriculum. We felt like there was some unmet needs there, and so I think this curriculum will do better. And then, as you know, reading is the next thing that we're looking at very closely.
Thank you.
I think it's like when you look at these numbers too, when you look at a general education classroom of 20 kids, those kids are within like a range here, whereas like every single one of these kids is so very different. And it's hard to predict always like who's going to be coming in, move-ins, and it's not always students with, learning disabilities, but students with autism or health needs and all that. So I feel like it's just hard to predict the needs, and sometimes you project and then September comes and you've got to readjust everything. And so it's
Right.
a hard game to play with just looking at the numbers.
If we'd have move-ins and there were students with significant needs, we would definitely need to add staffing. We'll keep our eye on the early childhood numbers. That's something that, definitely requires more staffing. In that case, at any given time, possibly look at a morning and an afternoon session instead of just a morning session, or at that case, do we add additional paras to help support? Again, it just comes down to what the needs of the students are.
And then some students too have, mental health needs. And so that's a whole nother can of worms with just the post-COVID and, all the things that the increase in mental health needs for our students that sometimes ends up being special ed services. So, yeah, it's a lot.
Is there a motion or other questions?
I'll move the board approve 157 regular education open enrollment seats and 0 seats in the special education programs for the 2024-2025 school year based on the criteria outlined in the board's open enrollment policy 5113.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion or questions? Okay. Hearing none, I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Ken Imers,
Aye.
Andrea Graham,
Aye.
Kirk Lund,
Aye.
Brianna Beslick,
Aye.
Amy Litcher.
Aye. Now moving on to what I didn't see in there, but 7B, for Mr. Ludd to be able to vote as he would, as he feels his conscience would, at the WASB Delegate Assembly.
Do you want a motion?
Yes.
I'll move the board to give Mr. Lund the latitude to vote on the Wisconsin Association of School Board resolutions at the 2024 Wisconsin State Education Convention.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Any questions? Hearing none, I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Andrea Graham,
Aye.
Kirk Lund,
Aye.
Brianna Beslick,
Aye.
Ken Imers,
Aye.
Amy Litcher.
Aye. All right. The next action item is the 2024-25 district calendar.
This one was a doozy, a little more contentious just because the dates didn't fall nice and neat like they do, and sometimes it just depends on where Christmas break lands and the different holidays. I think the other goal was we were trying not to go into the second week of June. If we didn't care about going into the second week of June, this calendar would have been really easy. I think one of the hurdles that we experience when we go into the second week of June is it tightens up when that break between the end of the school year and when summer school begins. And I think it's very healthy for our staff to have some type of a break from the last day of school until the start of summer school, that it's hard to turn around and go right back into teaching summer school. And as I think every parent and teacher sees, once you hit Memorial Day, it becomes increasingly difficult to keep students engaged as well. So we were kind of fighting a battle since we were still not able to start before September 1st of trying to get in the number of teacher contract days, also trying to get in the number of hours of instruction and making it all flow. So we have some additional days of in-service at the beginning of the year, which I think will help. There's never enough time to get things done anyway, and we are working closely with the Lake Mills Police Department, and we'll be taking about a half a day to really go through our safety and security protocols a little bit more in depth this year before school starts, which I'm excited to be able to do. It also gives us some extra time to do the nonviolent crisis intervention training, which we do also try to squeeze in and don't always have adequate time for. The one big change as we looked at the high school exam schedule, and it's not been too well received, is not having back-to-back in-service days in January, but really just having the one in-service day, because otherwise, if we would have done two in January, we wouldn't have had anything in the spring. We wouldn't have had it in April or May, and we really need an in-service day in April as we start to wind up our assessment calendar, having time to analyze data, and look at that more closely. Otherwise, we've got some larger gaps in our in-service schedule if we do the back-to-back. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Otherwise, the rest of the in-service days are at their typical times.
All right.
I was just gonna say, I thought it flowed well, like with the way everything fell out and where in-service days versus holidays all came. Like, I kind of felt like this was the best calendar presented yet, so
Well, thank you.
I liked it.
You've noticed new graphics. Again, Megan keeps working hard to make things eye-catching and easy to read, and so I think this is really easy to read as well.
All right. Is there a motion?
I move the board approve the 2024-2025 district calendar as presented.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Any further questions or concerns or comments? Hearing none, I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Kirk Lund,
Aye.
Brianna Beslick,
Aye.
Ken Imers,
Aye.
Andrea Graham,
Aye.
Amy Litcher.
Aye. All right. Virtual Learning Network Agreement action item.
I think staff, when I say staff, I'll say Erin Siegslag and Carmen Weldon and Rachel Dickett and Kale have been really working since we chose to not stay with Jedi Virtual School. We were almost going to contract with a different virtual school, and then Aaron took another closer look at it as far as the support we would have or not have for our students with an IEP. And so they met with another vendor, and you can see the grid in board docs as far as a comparison of those services. The counselors also felt very strongly about this vendor as well. Looked into it very closely, like I said, met with the different reps for this. So they are already in the midst of scheduling for next year, so this does work in very, very nicely with the schedule. We've set a budgetary limit for the services as well, so we don't see this, getting out of hand as far as what our budget can absorb, so it's well within our budget constraints as well.
Can you remind me how many students we have doing?
So I'd say the majority of these are just singleton enrollments. We only have, I think, three full-time Jedi students. Currently Jedi students, I should say, but full-time virtual students.
That's a class or two here and there. Is that what you-
Yeah, a lot of I should say not only electives, but a lot of the electives and just courses because of the size of our high school that we're not able to offer, which is, I think, ideal for students that are going down a career pathway that they would like something more specific to that. I would say criminal justice is a very popular one. We have a lot of students taking courses in that pathway. We don't offer that elective. And then also in our culinary arts program, we're heavy on the culinary arts side, but we don't offer the other half of that position just because Audrey is a chef by trade. And so a lot of the students will take the childcare classes virtually as well because we don't offer those, and it works really well. Sometimes students will take the virtual classes just because they can't fit that class into their schedule with the way that their schedule falls.
And is this like through the state of Wisconsin, or where is this company?
So it's not through the state of Wisconsin, but the teachers are licensed appropriately.
Okay.
I'd have to, I don't remember. Aaron, do you remember offhand which state it was?
It's an LLC out of Virginia.
Was it Pennsylvania? Close.
Was Jedi out of Wisconsin?
Yes. Jedi was one of our charter schools. We're here in the consortium, so that's through CISA too. Actually through Marshall School District, but CISA 2 is the fiscal agent.
I was going to ask, so currently the general fee is, significantly less than what we were paying with Jedi and amongst the other, costs as well. But I did notice in the agreement that there was a cost per student for logins. With those approximate amount of students who might be taking it, does that still put us under that Jedi cost of what we would be paying?
Do you want to come up, Aaron, and maybe address that?
Yeah, we should still be able to be under that number. The costs are relatively similar, as you saw. That enrollment fee is a little lower. But in talking to them, they put together the bare minimum of what we're contracted for, and that's what's in the contract. And that came out at just over $24,000 out of our $65,000 budget. And what that means is that for additional logins, we can add them later, but we're not on the hook for them, if that makes sense.
So that price already includes the logins. Got it.
And a question, how does this, and I think you've mentioned it before, but how does this go hand in hand with like the Start College Now or that piece of the?
So most of these courses are going to be a general education high school level course. They could be, in some cases, exploratory type courses down a career pathway, so like an intro to criminal justice or a healthcare. These are not they're not taken through a post-secondary, so they're not part of that type of programming. But what our school counselors are encouraging is that really these online courses should be to continue your pathway, especially for those pathways we don't have. So I would say, while it's not the same, right? Because Start College Now, Early College Credit, those are all through post-secondary schools. These online courses offer students the ability to learn more in those areas of interest or career pathways at what's considered a high school level.
Okay. Right. Thank you. So is there any other questions or a motion?
I'll move the board approve the blended learning services agreement with the virtual learning network agreement as presented.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions, concerns, comments? If not, I will ask for a roll call vote.
Brianna Beslick,
Aye.
Ken Imers,
Aye.
Andrea Graham,
Aye.
Kirk Lund,
Aye.
Amy Litcher.
Aye. All right, moving on to gifts. And again, community wows me and wows us every single time. So, list of gifts.
I'll move the board thank the generous donors for their continued support of our students and programs at the Lake Mills Area School District. The first is a Yamaha Advantage YSL 2000 AD trombone, valued at $1,142 to the Middle School Music Department from Michael Wilkie. The following are Lake Mills Recreation Department donations. The first is a piece of artwork valued at $180 from Rick Sinbonic to Club 55's fundraiser. Soup valued at $200 from the Grist for Club 55's holiday party, $400 to Club 55 from the South Side Eagles from volunteers who worked at the State Fair pork chop booth, and centerpieces valued at $500 from Mary Ann Swaska for the Club's 55 holiday party.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right, I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Ken Imers,
Aye.
Andrea Graham,
Aye.
Kirk Lund,
Aye.
Brianna Beslick,
Aye.
Amy Litcher.
Aye. All right. For the upcoming board action items, future agenda items, our next meeting is February 19th, and it'll be held in the high school LMC at 6:30 due to the spring primary here. So the WASB convention report. The other thing I would add is, will we have a closed session area where I'm going to gather up all the notes and after the discussion today at the closed session, and then present them to you, and ask for questions and then follow up with you at the closed session on the 19th?
Okay.
Okay?
So, yeah, it's for those of you too attending, since we have that convention report, like, it's sometimes it's nice to pick, 2 sessions, 3 sessions that I think, really particularly were meaningful for you or sparked some interest. And so just to be prepared with some notes and be able to share, you're learning at the convention, especially because I know 2 of you won't be able to attend. I'll do the same. So, yeah, it's still a pretty light agenda. I think we'll probably have some discussion about facilities as the CAT team will be reconvening the Wednesday after the board meeting. So we'll be picking up that discussion again here next month with facilities.
I would love to have more presentations from any of like the clubs or
Yes, we can.
organizations. I just
The
love
tricky
that.
part, yeah, today with it being an in-service day, and actually Angie volunteered, and so we were looking ahead, and we're like, oh, it's on an in-service day again in February because we're meeting on President's Day. It's a little harder to encourage the kids to come out on a non-school day, but you're right. I know we'd like to circle back to that.
I vote for more musical performances at our meetings.
Isn't that great? Yes.
All right. Any other action items for next agenda? Want to be added? All right. Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'll move we adjourn.
Second.
Hey, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose, same sign. We are adjourned.